Politics yet again is tied up in this, but I guess President Zelenskyy won't mind that too much. He just needs all the help he can get. And again, the Johnson visit, I suppose, is indicating that Germany's decision not to send those tanks is something not shared by the rest of Europe.
So President Zelenskyy has made it very clear that in order to see off the Russian offensive that will come back this year, and to mount a Ukrainian offensive to take back the 100,000 square kilometers that Russia is still sitting on of Ukraine, he needs 300 tanks and 500 artillery weapons and a lot more of the support, including ammunition, that will go with that. And he's not getting anywhere close to that yet. So he would welcome anybody who could go to Ukraine and shift the needle on international effort. So he would have welcomed former Prime Minister Johnson in that regard, but he would know perfectly well that Mr. Johnson no longer speaks for the government or can make policy or resource decisions, and President Zelenskyy is looking very firmly at Germany in particular to release their Leopard 2 tanks.
Can I put it to you, though, that perhaps those voices of caution in Germany and the rest of NATO about supplying tanks, which could be seen, of course, as offensive rather than defensive weapons, that could prove counterproductive in this sort of game of cat and mouse with Putin?
So it's been an argument that's been mounted ever since the invasion began in February of last year. And that argument is now very much weaker because we've seen the toll and the destruction that has been inflicted on Ukraine. And the Ukrainians will say, well, what else have we got to lose? This is an existential fight for the existence of our country. And Russia itself has substantially weakened its conventional forces as a result of the disastrous invasion and the way that it's prosecuted it. So Russia has no military advantage left in thinking that it could take on the rest of NATO, although it describes the war as now a war between NATO and Russia rather than a war between Russia and Ukraine. So something like a tank is essential to how a Russian offensive is broken up in the coming year, and it's essential to how Ukraine takes its country back. There is no question of equipment like that being used to go into Russia, which is where the red line would be.
Yeah, although clearly Putin might try and make political capital from that. But how do you see it going now? I mean, everyone expecting, of course, some kind of spring offensive with the Russians trying again with perhaps yet more cannon fodder, as it's been described. Because certainly Ukrainian soldiers on the front line saying it is like the First World War, a war of attrition, where these Russians just keep coming over the top and are being mown down.
So this is the thing, both sides plan to go on the attack in 2023, and there's a race on to see who can be organised strong enough to launch first in 2023. And right now, the balance of advantage is with Russia because they have many, many more people and they're mobilising their entire defence effort and their defence industry. And they don't have to ask anybody else to do that. And they started this particular war. Ukraine, on the other hand, has lots of people, but they're citizens. They're not, in many cases, trained military people, so that takes time. But they need the equipment and ammunition and support that you can only get from the West, from NATO countries in particular. And delays like the one we saw on Friday in providing this equipment means that Ukraine is less likely to be ready to see off a Russian offensive or mount its own in 2023. So not only is this delay a danger to Ukraine, it also means the war is much, much more likely to go on into 2024 or even beyond.
General Sir Richard